So he says steamrollers have a defining characteristics. They constantly, number one, interrupt, right? And they don't let you get they don't let you get through what you. As soon as you begin to answer, they hear something that they don't like in your explanation, and they interrupt. They pile on another challenge, right? Well, wait, you know.
The scripture's been changed. Well, in order to do that, you'd have to do a lot of things, like Jericho. Jericho, that didn't really happen. The pottery shards. Well, those pottery shards, and not about Jericho only, but the Exodus as a whole, that never really happened. Well, hold on. I'm steamrolled over this.
So it says, if you try to go down, a new path, they interrupt again, firing questions, changing the subject. Yes, never really listening to anything that you have to say, right? And so you find yourself constantly, he says, off balance and on the defensive.
Right.
Of course, that's not where we want to be.
No.
In terms of...
we want balance.
That's right, in terms of our tactics, right?
We want balance. We want this to be again, a dialogue, a dialogos, words between two people. And again, that's something that you should desire. You shouldn't steamroll people. You shouldn't say... again, here's 24 facts on the basic assumptions of the resurrection, and number 24, and they're like, I had an issue with one. Can we go back to one? Oh, sorry.
So he says when you encounter these people who try to overpower you, he says they don't overwhelm you, right? With facts or arguments. Rather, they roll over you with the force of their personalities, right? Their challenges come quickly, one after another, keeping you from collecting your wits and giving a thoughtful answer. Right? And this is the idea of what he's getting at with regard to steamrollers. Right?
And the nice thing is we have a 3-step kind of approach on how to deal with them.
Yay!
So
how do we deal with these steamrollers? These people who are, not really overmatching us with information, that sort of thing, but kind of just overwhelming us and knocking us over, right?
Well, get around the steamroll and ask the person to stop.
Wow.
Yeah. The first step in dealing with the steamroll is a mild one, right? Even though you feel pushed to your limits by the annoyance, you don't fire back in kind, guaranteeing a head-on this collision between you and the immovable object. Instead, your first move should be a genial request for courtesy. Stop the intrusion by momentarily putting the discussion on pause, then briefly get permission to continue your point without being interrupted. Use a little body language, like putting up your hand. That's a good one. Most people view that as an international sign for stop. You raise your hand to emphasize this point. And you say, "Oh, hold on, just a second." Yeah. And kind of. When they're starting to get going, when the Scooby-Doo, when they start running in place, just stop them first and say, "Hold on, before we take off here."
What about the music? Do you cut the music off?
Yeah.
Whatever.
The record scratch. Record scratch. Yeah. So when you get a pause, quickly negotiate an informal agreement. Say something like, "Well, is it okay with you if I take a few moments to answer your question before you ask another? I'll give you a chance to respond. When I get done, will that work?" And again, you might find these responses a little cheesy, but what Greg Koukl is doing is he's kind of giving you that cheesy response of the things that you can say in like manner, where you're like, "Oh, hold on a second, I don't think I've completed my point. Can I finish it?" And then you can respond. Right. That's something that's not as cheesy.
Now notice what you've done is you've said stop.
Yeah.
Right.
You've identified. And sometimes people come from that background. Maybe their walk of life, maybe their family life causes them to interrupt. And, we're not all from the Midwest who silently grits our teeth and waits for the other person to get done talking before we launch into it. Maybe not. So that's not a simple issue. I need a moment to explain myself. Is that okay? What's your opinion on abortion? Well, okay, that might take more than, again, the simple concept of a single sentence. And if you don't do it, Doug Wilson kind of has that line of, yes, I sometimes have thoughts that take more than one sentence to get out.
Wow. Surprise. Well, that's a good question, and it deserves a decent answer, but that will take a few minutes. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Right? So you kind of stop them, and so that you're allowed to, they've asked you a question, right? And so now you want them to hear your answer, right? Before you go on and they, kind of ratchet it up by giving you question after question after question.
And to using the Columbo tactic within it, which is what we're going to find. Surprise, surprise, the Columbo tactic's going to work here. Is maybe that initial conversation was just kind of the catalyst to get to the point that they really want to talk about. And so that might be something it doesn't seem like you want to kind of have that conversation. Is there something else that you're trying to get to? And they might say, oh, well, I don't really want to talk about the attestation of New Testament documents. What I really want to talk about is the contradiction that I know of that no one's ever explained to me. Okay, let's have that conversation then. Yeah. I'm fine with that. Let's get to that conversation. Yeah. How did you come to that conclusion?
And so he says here, don't let a steamroller get under your skin. Being defensive and belligerent always looks weak. Instead, stay focused on the issues, not on the attitude. Talk calmly and try to look confident, right? Because we're trying to help them to, see what our position is and understand what's going on. So the first thing we do is we stop them, right? Hey, wait, just a minute.
Hold on.
Yeah. Can I answer that first question first, and then we can go on from there, right? We kind of stop them, right?